The joint human-alien assault began at dawn as modified fighter jets equipped with UNA-enhanced weapons rose into the sky above Seoul. The pilots had trained for weeks with the new technology, but they were still nervous about facing an enemy that had easily defeated every conventional weapon in the human arsenal. UNA insisted on joining the space battle despite her weakened condition from interfacing with alien technology. Her psychic abilities could coordinate the human pilots in ways that radio communication never could. She would create a mental link between all the fighters, allowing them to move as one unified force. Taeho helped her into the specially modified cockpit of his fighter jet, where life support systems had been adapted to sustain her alien physiology. The crystal pendant she wore around her neck glowed softly as her bioenergy began to merge with the aircraft electronic systems. The mental link activated as soon as Yuna concentrated her remaining strength on connecting with the other pilots. Each human fighter suddenly gained access to enhanced reflexes and tactical awareness that made them move with supernatural precision. The effect was like giving every pilot the combat experience of a veteran. Ace Commander Raktos watched from his command ship as the human forces approached and felt contempt for their primitive tactics. His shields were impenetrable to conventional weapons, and his energy cannons could destroy entire squadrons. With single shots, the humans were flying directly into a massacre. The first wave of human fighters opened fire with their modified weapons, and Commander Rakto's expression changed from contempt to surprise as several of his scout ship's energy shields flickered and failed. The human weapons were somehow tuned to frequencies that disrupted Vorthek defensive systems aboard the Vorthek command ship. Hannah had successfully installed the communication device into the ship neural network and was transmitting real-time tactical information to the human forces. The alien computers were incredibly sophisticated, but they had not been designed to detect human manufactured viruses. The sabotage mission was more successful than anyone had hoped as Hannah gained access to critical ship systems and began disrupting them systematically. She disabled several weapon batteries and caused power fluctuations that affected the entire fleet. Her warrior training had prepared her for this moment. Jinwoo listened to the battle communications from the ground command center and felt pride mixed with terror as he heard reports of Hana's successful sabotage. She was risking everything to give humanity a fighting chance against impossible odds. Her courage inspired him to push harder in his own role coordinating ground defenses. The Vorthak fleet began to realize that they were facing organized resistance rather than the chaotic panic they had expected. The human fighters moved with coordination that seemed impossible for such a primitive species. Their weapons were specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in alien technology. Juna's psychic link allowed her to sense the confusion and growing fear among the Vorthak crew members. They had never faced an enemy that could adapt so quickly to their tactics. The human pilots were learning and improving with each passing minute of the battle. The energy weapons created through Yuna's sacrifice began to take a terrible toll on the alien fleet. Several scout ships had been destroyed, and even the larger vessels were showing damage from the precisely targeted attacks. The Vorthek were learning that humans were far more dangerous than they had believed. Commander Raktos realized that his ship had been compromised from within and ordered security teams to find and eliminate the saboteur. Hannah had anticipated this response and had prepared several escape routes through the ship ventilation systems. Her enhanced strength and agility allowed her to move quickly through narrow spaces. The battle in space intensified as more Vorthok ships arrived to reinforce the original force. The aliens were calling for backup because they were genuinely threatened by the human resistance. The situation had escalated from a simple prisoner retrieval to a major military engagement. Taeho guided his fighter through a complex attack pattern that would have been impossible without Yuna's psychic coordination. He could feel her presence in his mind, giving him the reflexes and tactical awareness needed to survive against superior alien technology. Their bond had become a weapon against the enemy. Ground-based missile batteries equipped with modified warheads began engaging the larger Vorthek vessels. With some success, the aliens' energy shields were designed to deflect conventional explosives, but the human weapons had been specifically tuned to disrupt their defensive frequencies. Hannah reached the ship's main power core after fighting through several security checkpoints. Her enhanced strength allowed her to tear through bulkheads and overcome alien guards, who had not expected such fierce resistance from a single prisoner. The core room was a cathedral of pulsing energy that controlled the entire ship. The intelligence she had gathered revealed that destroying the power core would disable the entire Vorthak fleet because all their ships were linked through a central command network. The explosion would create a cascade failure that would leave the alien forces helpless. Jinwoo's voice reached her through the communication device as she prepared to overload the power core. He told her that he loved her and believed in her strength. His words gave her the emotional support she needed to complete the most dangerous part of her mission. The human fighter squadron, led by Taiho and coordinated by Yuna, began their final assault on the command ship. The modified weapons were having a devastating effect on alien defenses. But the cost was terrible. Several pilots had been lost, and more were being shot down with each passing minute. Yuna felt her life force draining away as she maintained the psychic link that was keeping the human forces coordinated the alien technology. And the weapons was poisoning her system, but she refused to break the connection while the battle continued. Her sacrifice was the only thing keeping the pilots alive. The Vorthak fleet was in full retreat by the time Hannah reached the power core. But Commander Raktos had ordered a final desperate measure. The ship would overload its weapons and destroy Seoul in a massive explosion that would eliminate millions of humans along with the alien refugees. Hannah realized that she had only minutes to prevent the destruction of the city and the people who had become her family. The power core was protected by multiple backup systems, but her enhanced strength and technical knowledge might be enough to disable them. The explosion she was about to cause would likely kill her, but it would also save Earth from the immediate threat of the Vorthak invasion. The cascade failure would disable the entire alien fleet and give humanity time to prepare for the larger war that was coming. Taiho felt Yuna's presence growing weaker in his mind as she poured the last of her strength into maintaining the psychic link. The human fighters were winning the battle, but the cost was the life of the alien, who had given them hope and the weapons they needed to fight back. The final moments of the battle approached as both sisters prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice for their adopted world. The love they had found with human soldiers had given them the strength to face impossible odds and the courage to give their lives for others. The counterattack had succeeded beyond all expectations, but the victory would come at a terrible price. The bonds between species had been forged in war and tested in the fire of battle. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance as the climactic moments approached. The explosion that would change everything was about to begin, and the heroes who had made it possible were ready to pay the ultimate price for the freedom of both their species. The battle was almost over, but the war for survival had only just begun. The explosion of the Vorthak command ship power core created a brilliant flash of light that could be seen from space as energy cascaded through the linked alien fleet. Every ship in the formation suddenly went dark as their systems failed simultaneously. The surviving vessels drifted helplessly in orbit around Earth, unable to fight or flee. Hannah had survived the core explosion because her alien physiology was more resilient than anyone had expected. The energy that would have killed a human had instead thrown her into a protective coma. While her body absorbed and processed the massive power surge, she was found floating in an emergency pod that had automatically ejected from the dying ship. Human rescue teams working with modified Vorthak technology were able to locate and retrieve her within hours of the explosion. Jinwoo was part of the rescue mission and held her unconscious form as they rushed back to Earth. The crystal pendant she had given him was glowing brightly, responding to her nearness. The footage of their reunion was broadcast around the world as billions of humans watched the love story that had helped save their planet. Hannah's warrior spirit had found peace in Jinwoo's gentle strength, while his steady nature had given her hope for the future. They had become symbols of unity between species. Yuna had collapsed immediately after the psychic link was broken, but human doctors working with alien medical technology were able to stabilize her condition. The poisoning from interfacing with Vorthak systems had nearly killed her, but Taiho's presence seemed to help her healing process. The bond between Yuna and Taiho had grown beyond simple love into something that transcended the boundaries between species. Their Connection had become a source of strength for both of them and proof that understanding could overcome even the greatest differences. Earth underwent rapid transformation in the months following the victory. The captured Vorthok technology was reverse engineered by human scientists working with the sisters' technical knowledge. Advances in energy weapons, shields, and space travel pushed human civilization forward by centuries. The disabled alien fleet provided a wealth of information about the Vorthok Empire and their methods. The remaining crew members were taken prisoner, and many agreed to cooperate with human authorities in exchange for better treatment than they had given their own victims. Yuna established a new research facility, where humans and the few surviving members of her species worked together to develop defenses against future alien threats. The technology they created combined human ingenuity with alien science to produce innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. The relationship between Yuna and Taiho continued to deepen as they planned a future together. Their love had been tested in the crucible of war and had emerged stronger than ever. The cultural differences between their species became advantages as they learned from each other. Hana and Jinwoo romance blossomed in the aftermath of the war as they traveled together, sharing their story with the world. Her warrior heart had found peace in his steady presence, while his gentle nature had awakened her capacity for hope and joy. The sisters had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not only saved Earth, but had forged an alliance between species that would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. The Vorthok Empire faced rebellion from worlds they had conquered. As news of their defeat spread, other alien species began to contact Earth seeking alliance against the Vorthok threat. The victory had proven that the Empire was not invincible, and that cooperation between species could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. The human military was completely restructured to incorporate alien technology and tactics. Earth became a fortress world defended by energy shields and armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The planet that had once been helpless against invasion became a beacon of hope for oppressed species. The sisters established protocols for peaceful first contact with alien species based on their own experience with humanity. The guidelines emphasized respect, cultural exchange, and mutual benefit rather than conquest or exploitation. Healing abilities were studied by human medical researchers who discovered that her powers could be partially replicated using alien biotechnology. The breakthrough led to revolutionary treatments for diseases that had plagued humanity for thousands of years. Hana combat skills were used to train elite human soldiers in advanced warfare techniques. Her knowledge of alien tactics and technology made Earth forces capable of fighting enemies they had never imagined facing. The transformation of Earth from an isolated world to a major galactic power happened with incredible speed. The planet that had been targeted for conquest became the center of a growing alliance of free worlds united against tyranny. The love. The morning sky over Seoul suddenly filled with dark shadows as sleek alien ships appeared without warning. The Vorthok advanced scouts had arrived sooner than anyone expected, and their presence sent waves of panic through the human population. Below the ships were massive and triangular with surfaces that seemed to absorb light, making them appear like holes in the sky. Commander Rakdos stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, studying the primitive world below through his reptilian eyes. His scaled skin was dark green with silver markings that indicated his high rank in the Vorthok Empire. The energy signatures of the escaped prisoners were somewhere on this planet, and he would find them no matter how many humans had to suffer. In the process, Yuna felt the familiar cold dread wash over her as she sensed the psychic presence of her people enemies. Her empathic abilities, which had been slowly returning to full strength, picked up the mental emanations of Vorthok minds filled with cruelty and contempt for all other forms of life. She collapsed to her knees in the military briefing room where she had been explaining alien technology to human scientists. The telepathic connection worked both ways, and Yuna could feel the fear and confusion of humans as Vorthok mind probes began scanning major cities looking for the escaped refugees. The alien hunters used painful mental intrusion techniques that left their victims disoriented and terrified. Many humans in Seoul began experiencing severe headaches and vivid nightmares. Hana immediately sensed her sister's distress and rushed to her side. The warrior sister had been demonstrating combat techniques to human special forces when the psychic wave hit them both. She helped Yuna to her feet, and they both knew that their peaceful time on Earth was over. The hunt had begun, and innocent humans would suffer because of their presence. Colonel Park and his staff watched in horror as news reports showed the alien ships hovering over major cities around the world. The vessels made no attempt to communicate with human governments and ignored all radio signals sent in their direction. Instead, they began deploying smaller scout craft that flew low over populated areas, scanning everything with bright blue beams. The Vorthak scouts were methodical in their search patterns. They would hover over apartment buildings, shopping centers, and schools while their scanning beams penetrated walls and examined every living being inside. Humans who were caught in the beams reported feeling like their minds were being torn apart as the aliens searched for a specific Memoria. Steho stood beside Yuna in the command center, watching the live news feeds with growing anger. His protective instincts were screaming at him to take action, but he knew that conventional human weapons would be useless against the advanced alien technology. The sisters had warned him that Vorthak shields could deflect bullets, missiles, and even nuclear weapons. The alien ships seemed to be toying with human military forces. Several jets had been scrambled to intercept the scouts, but the Vorthak vessels simply ignored them or disabled their engines with precise energy blasts that left the pilots unharmed but helpless. The message was clear: humanity was so far beneath them that they were not even worth killing. Yuna made a decision that terrified everyone in the room. She announced that she and Hannah would have to reveal themselves to the Vorthak commanders and try to negotiate for Earth safety. The alien empire had no interest in human civilization and might be willing to leave the planet alone if they got what they came for. Human military officials immediately rejected this plan. They had seen what the sisters could do and understood that their abilities might be the key to defending Earth against the invasion. Allowing them to surrender would leave humanity defenseless against future attacks. When the main Vorthak fleet arrived, Hannah supported her sister's decision, but for different reasons. She wanted to get close enough to the alien ships to study their defenses and find weaknesses that human forces could exploit. Her warrior training told her that intelligence gathering was more important than immediate safety, and she was willing to risk capture to get that information. Colonel Park proposed a compromise that would allow the sisters to contact the Vorthak while remaining under human protection. They would broadcast a message from the military base offering to negotiate for the return of the escaped refugees. The sisters would appear to be willing prisoners who could be exchanged for human safety. The plan was dangerous because it required the sisters to trust that human forces could protect them if negotiations went wrong. The Vorthak were known for their treachery and would likely try to eliminate both the refugees and their human protectors once they had what they wanted. Teho watched Yuna prepare for the broadcast and felt his heart breaking at the thought of losing her. The gentle alien who had brought peace to his troubled mind was about to sacrifice herself for a world that was not even her own. Her courage and selflessness made him love her even more deeply. The broadcast was transmitted on frequencies that Vorthak communications equipment would detect within minutes. Yuna spoke in her native language, explaining that she and her sister were willing to discuss terms for their surrender. The message also included subtle warnings about human defensive capabilities that might make the aliens more cautious. Commander Raktos received the transmission and felt satisfaction at finally locating his quarry. The escaped prisoners were hiding in a human military facility and seemed to have formed alliances with the local population. This made the situation more interesting because he could use human hostages to ensure cooperation. The Vorthak response came swiftly and was as brutal as expected. 3 of the smaller scout ships converged on Seoul and began a systematic attack on civilian targets. The aliens were demonstrating their power and showing humans what would happen if they continued to protect the refugees. Explosions rocked the city as Vorthak energy weapons destroyed buildings and infrastructure. The aliens were careful not to kill too many humans, but the message was clear. They could eliminate human civilization whenever they chose, and only the surrender of the escaped prisoners would save innocent lives. Yuna watched the destruction on live television and felt the weight of responsibility crushing her spirit. Every human who died or suffered was paying the price for her presence on their world. She had brought this nightmare to Earth, and now she had to find a way to end it before more people were hurt. The human military response was swift but ineffective. Jets and tanks fired everything they had at the alien ships, but their weapons had no impact on the Vorthek energy shields. The aliens seemed amused by human efforts to fight back and responded with precisely targeted shots that disabled military equipment without killing the operators. Hannah studied the attack patterns and began to understand how Vorthek technology worked. The energy shields were powerful, but they seemed to have specific frequencies and power cycles that might be exploitable. She started working with human engineers to develop weapons that could penetrate the alien defenses. The sisters realized that simply surrendering would not save Earth from future attacks. The Vorthek Empire was interested in this planet resources and strategic location, regardless of whether the refugees were captured. Their presence had accelerated the timeline, but the invasion would have happened eventually anyway. Jinwoo found Hana in the engineering lab, where she was frantically working on weapon modifications. Her hands were moving with incredible speed as she rewired human electronics to match Vorthak energy frequencies. He could see the desperation in her eyes as she tried to find a way to fight back against impossible odds. The attack on Seoul continued for hours, with the aliens methodically destroying military installations and government buildings while avoiding civilian casualties. The psychological warfare was working as intended, with human leaders becoming increasingly desperate to end the violence. Taeho made a decision that would change everything. He contacted the Vorthek directly and offered to arrange a meeting between Commander Raktos and the sisters. The negotiations would take place at a neutral location where both sides could maintain their defensive positions. The alien commander agreed to the meeting, but demanded that it take place aboard his ship, where he would have complete control over the situation. He also insisted that both sisters attend, along with a small number of human representatives. The trap was obvious, but there seemed to be no other choice as preparations began for the dangerous meeting. Yuna and Hannah knew that they were walking into a situation where survival was unlikely, but they also understood that this might be humanity's only chance to learn enough about Vorthek technology to mount an effective defense. The hunt had begun, but the sisters were determined to turn the tables on their pursuers. The next phase of their adventure would test everything they had learned about human courage and their own abilities. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance as the meeting approached. The aliens had found their quarry, but they had also discovered that humans were not the helpless primitives they had expected. The real battle was about to begin. The meeting with Commander Raktos was scheduled to take place in 2 days, but the sisters knew that walking into the Vorthek ship would be suicide. The alien commander had no intention of negotiating fairly and would likely torture them for information. Before executing both them and their human protectors, Hannah proposed a different plan that was even more dangerous than the original meeting. She would allow herself to be captured during a staged Vorthek raid on Seoul while carrying a modified human communication device that would appear to be standard alien technology. Once aboard the enemy ship, she could sabotage their systems from within. The device had been modified by human engineers working with Yuna technical knowledge to look like a standard Vorthek personal shield generator, but actually contained sophisticated surveillance equipment and computer viruses designed to disrupt alien systems. The plan required perfect timing and incredible courage. Taeho and Jinwoo both protested against the plan because it essentially meant sending Hannah on a suicide mission. The Vorthek were known to be extremely thorough in their interrogations and would eventually discover the deception. The chances of her surviving long enough to complete the sabotage were minimal. Yuna supported her sister's decision because she understood that it might be their only chance to gather the intelligence needed to defeat the Vorthak invasion. The alien empire was too powerful to face directly, but they might be vulnerable to attacks from within their own systems. The emotional weight of the decision was crushing for everyone involved. Jinwoo had grown to care deeply for Hana, despite her fierce independence and warrior nature. Her willingness to sacrifice herself for a world that was not her own showed him the true depth of her character. Hana spent her last night on Earth, walking through the military base with Jinwoo, talking about her memories of Kithara and her hopes for the future. She told him about the mate she had lost during the invasion and how meeting him had helped her heal from that devastating loss. The conversation was interrupted by news that Vorthic forces were conducting major raids on cities around the world. The aliens were becoming impatient with the delay in negotiations and were demonstrating their power by destroying infrastructure and capturing human civilians for interrogation. Yeo was working with human technicians to modify captured Vorthic energy weapons when she collapsed from exhaustion. The process of interfacing with alien biotechnology was draining her life force and causing her blue skin to fade to pale silver. Her healing abilities were being overwhelmed by the toxic nature of the alien system. Stiho found her in the laboratory, barely conscious, and carried her to the medical bay where human doctors tried to stabilize her condition. The alien technology was somehow poisoning her system, but she insisted on continuing the work because human survival depended on having effective weapons. The modified weapons were partially organic and required a living touch to function properly. Yuna could interface with them in ways that humans could not, but each connection weakened her further. She was literally giving her life to provide humanity with the tools they needed to fight back. As Yuna grew weaker, Taiho realized how deeply he had fallen in love with the gentle alien who had brought peace to his troubled world. Her courage and selflessness in the face of impossible odds made him understand what true heroism looked like. He spent every free moment by her side trying to give her strength. She told him about her world before the invasion, describing crystal cities that sang in harmony with the wind and forests where the trees themselves were intelligent beings. The beauty of her memories contrasted sharply with the darkness of their current situation, but gave him hope that such wonders could exist again. The communication device that Hannah would carry was finally ready and had been tested successfully on captured Vorthic equipment. The device would transmit valuable intelligence about ship layouts, defensive systems, and command structures directly to human forces on the ground. Hannah underwent intensive training to prepare for her mission, learning how to move through Vorthic ship corridors without being detected and how to access alien computer systems. The training was conducted by human special forces who had studied the intelligence provided by the sisters. The staged raid was planned for the following morning when Vorthic scouts would be conducting their routine sweep of Seoul. Hannah would position herself in a location where she could be easily captured while making it appear that she was trying to reach her sister. Jinwoo struggled with the knowledge that he might never see Hannah again after the mission. Their relationship had developed from mutual respect into something deeper despite the vast differences between their species. Her strength and courage had awakened feelings in him that he had never experienced before. The night before the mission, Hannah gave Jinwoo a small crystal pendant that had belonged to her lost mate. The pendant was made from a mineral found only on Cathara and would glow softly when exposed to her species. Bioenergy, she told him it would help him remember her if she did not return. Yuna's condition continued to deteriorate as she worked on the final weapon modifications, but she refused to stop despite Taiho pleading with her to rest. The alien technology was slowly killing her, but she insisted that human survival was more important than her own life. The relationship between Yuna and Taiho had evolved far beyond the simple bond between protector and refugee. They had found love in the midst of war, and their connection seemed to transcend the boundaries between species. Her presence gave him strength while his love somehow slowed the poisoning process. The morning of the mission arrived with dark clouds covering Seoul, as if nature itself was mourning what was about to happen. Hannah prepared for capture by hiding the communication device in her clothing and rehearsing her cover story about trying to escape human captivity. Vorthic ships appeared over the city exactly as predicted and began their systematic sweep of the area. Hannah positioned herself in the central square where she would be easily visible to the alien scanners while appearing to flee toward the military base. The capture happened exactly as planned, with Hannah putting up just enough resistance to make it believable before allowing herself to be taken aboard the Vorthic ship. The transport beam enveloped her in blue light, and she vanished from the square, leaving Jinwoo and the other soldiers watching helplessly. Commander Rakdos was pleased to finally have one of the escaped prisoners in his custody and ordered that she be brought directly to the interrogation chamber. The alien commander wanted to personally question her about human defenses and the location of her Sister Hannah found herself in a sterile metal room aboard the Vorthek ship surrounded by advanced technology that she recognized from her homeworld invasion. The familiar sights and sounds brought back traumatic memories but also gave her valuable information about ship systems and layouts. The interrogation began immediately with Commander Rakdos using both physical and mental torture techniques to break down her resistance. Hannah had prepared for this by creating false memories that would mislead the aliens about human capabilities, while protecting vital information. Meanwhile on Earth, Yuna had completed the final weapon modifications but collapsed immediately afterward. The alien technology had drained almost all of her life force and human doctors were struggling to keep her alive. Taiho stayed by her side holding her hand and whispering words of encouragement. The communication device that Hannah carried began transmitting valuable intelligence about Vorthek ship design and defensive systems. The information revealed weaknesses in their energy shields and provided detailed layouts of critical ship components. Human forces began preparing for a coordinated attack based on the intelligence. Hannah was providing the modified weapons created by Yuna were distributed to elite soldiers who would target the specific weaknesses identified by the reconnaissance mission. The success of the mission depended on precise timing and the courage of two alien sisters who had chosen to sacrifice themselves for a world that had given them sanctuary. The love they had found with human soldiers had given them the strength to face impossible odds. As the battle approached, both sisters knew that their greatest adventure was about to begin. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance and everything depended on the bonds they had formed with the humans who had become their family. The war between species was about to become a fight for survival that would test every relationship they had built and determine whether love could overcome the forces of destruction that threatened to consume both worlds. 3 weeks had passed since the alien sisters crashed on Earth, and the hidden bunker had become their temporary home. Yuna and Hannah were slowly recovering from their injuries. While learning about human culture and the world they had accidentally landed on, the soldiers took turns bringing them food, water, and supplies while keeping their existence secret from the outside world. Yuna spent most of her time with Sergeant Taiho learning basic Korean words and teaching him about her home planet, Kithara. She would sit by the small window in the bunker and describe the crystal cities that once stood beneath twin purple moons. Her people had been peaceful farmers and healers who lived in harmony with nature for thousands of years until the Vorthek Empire arrived. Her healing abilities fascinated the human medics who came to check on the sisters. Yuna could accelerate the healing process by placing her hands on wounded areas and concentrating her energy into them. The silver glow that emanated from her palms could mend broken bones in hours and close deep cuts in minutes. She demonstrated this power by healing a deep gash on Jinwoo arm that he had gotten during training. Taiho found himself drawn to Yuna's gentle wisdom and her ability to remain hopeful despite losing everything she had ever known. When she placed her healing hands on his shoulders after long days of worry and planning, he felt a peace he had never experienced before. Her touch seemed to calm his mind and give him strength to face the difficult decisions ahead. Hannah was very different from her sister and much more difficult to approach. She possessed incredible physical strength that allowed her to lift objects weighing several hundred kilograms with ease. Her reflexes were lightning fast, and she could move with fluid grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The soldiers watched in amazement as she performed acrobatic feats that would be impossible for any human. Private Jinwoo was assigned to work with Hannah and help her adapt to human customs, but she remained suspicious and hostile toward all the soldiers. She had lost her mate during the attack on Kithara, and her anger masked the deep grief she carried in her heart. Every night, she would have violent nightmares about the destruction of her world and wake up ready to fight invisible enemies. Jinwoo's patience and gentle approach slowly began to break through Hannah's defensive barriers. He would sit quietly near her and offer food or water without demanding conversation. When she had nightmares, he would speak softly until she calmed down and realized where she was. His kindness reminded her of the mate she had lost, and gradually she began to trust him. The military unit faced increasing pressure to explain their extended training exercises in the remote area. Colonel Park had grown suspicious of the unusual activity and announced that he would conduct a personal inspection of their operations. The soldiers knew that discovery would mean separation from the sisters and probably harsh interrogation by government scientists. Yuna understood the danger they all faced and made a decision that would change everything. She gathered Taiho and his men around her and revealed the real reason why she and Hana had fled their dying world. The Vorthic Empire was not satisfied with conquering just one planet. They were systematically destroying civilizations across the galaxy and harvesting resources from conquered worlds. Earth was next on their target list, and the sisters possessed vital information about Vorthec technology, weapons, and invasion strategies. The alien empire had been studying Earth for months and planned to attack within the next few years. Humanity had no idea what was coming, and their primitive weapons would be useless against advanced alien technology. The revelation transformed the situation from a simple rescue mission into a matter of planetary survival. Taiho realized that these alien refugees might be the only hope humanity had against a threat they could not even imagine. The weight of this knowledge pressed down on him as he considered the implications of what Yuna had just told them. Hana supported her sister explanation by demonstrating some of the weapons training she had received during the war on Kithara. She showed the soldiers how Vorthic energy weapons worked and explained their weaknesses. The alien invaders relied heavily on energy shields and advanced technology, but they had never faced opponents who could adapt and improvise like humans. The sisters began sharing detailed information about Vorthec battle tactics and military organization. The Empire used fear and overwhelming force to crush resistance before it could organize. Most species surrendered quickly when faced with the alien technology, but Yuna believed that humans might be different. She had observed human soldiers during her recovery and noticed that they possessed qualities that her own people had lacked. The humans showed creativity under pressure and refused to give up even when facing impossible odds. They also demonstrated strong bonds of loyalty and friendship that made them fight harder for each other. Taya made the difficult decision to contact Colonel Park and arrange a meeting with higher military officials. The sisters would have to reveal themselves to the human government, but it was the only way to prepare Earth for the coming invasion. He knew that some officials would want to use the aliens as weapons or test subjects, but he was determined to protect them. The day before Colonel Park's scheduled inspection, Yuna experienced a powerful vision. Through her psychic abilities, she saw Vorthak scout ships entering Earth's solar system and beginning their reconnaissance missions. The invasion timeline had been moved up, and Earth had even less time to prepare than they had thought. Her connection to the alien technology in the crashed pods allowed her to detect the energy signatures of approaching Vorthic vessels. The scout ships were still months away, but their presence meant that the main invasion force would not be far behind. Yuna shared this information with Taiho and urged him to act quickly. Hana's reaction to the news was immediate and violent. She wanted to steal human weapons and attack the scout ships before they could report back to the main fleet. Her warrior instincts told her that offense was the best defense. But Yuna convinced her that they needed human cooperation to have any chance of success. The relationship between Yuna and Taiho had grown stronger during their time together in the bunker. What had started as mutual respect and gratitude had developed into something deeper. Despite the vast differences between their species, they had found common ground in their desire to protect others and their willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. Jinwoo had also formed a strong bond with Hana, though it was more turbulent than his sister relationship with Taiho. Hana, fierce independence and warrior spirit, both attracted and challenged him. He admired her strength and courage, but worried about her tendency to choose violence as the first solution to problems. The sisters taught the soldiers basic words in their native language, while learning more complex Korean phrases. The translation devices helped, but direct communication created stronger bonds between them. Yuna's melodic voice could calm even the most stressed soldiers, while Hana's commanding presence inspired confidence during training exercises. The day of revelation approached. Both sisters felt the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. They were about to involve an entire planet in a war that was not originally their fight, but they had come to care deeply about their human protectors and the world that had given them shelter. The bunker that had been their prison had become their home, and the soldiers who had been their captors had become their family. The next phase of their journey would test all the relationships they had built and determine whether two species could work together to face an enemy that threatened them. Both Taya looked at Yuna as she prepared to meet with human officials and made a silent promise to himself. He would do everything in his power to keep her safe and help her people find a new home on Earth. The crash landing had brought them together, but what happened next would determine the fate of both worlds. The trust that had developed between humans and aliens over 3 weeks in a hidden bunker was about to be tested on a scale that none of them could have imagined. The real adventure was just beginning. The night sky over South Korea was peaceful and quiet until 2 bright streaks of fire appeared above the clouds. Moving faster than any airplane, the burning objects left trails of orange and red light behind them as they fell toward the earth. Below, the military base near Seoul was conducting routine training exercises when the first explosion lit up the entire forest like it was daytime. Sergeant Kim Tae-ho was checking his equipment when the ground shook beneath his feet. He looked up to see a massive fireball crash into the trees about 2 kilometers away from their position. The second explosion came just seconds later, creating another bright flash that made all the soldiers cover their eyes and duck for cover. Tae grabbed his radio and called to his men who were scattered across the training area. Something big had just happened, and he needed to investigate immediately. His team of 12 soldiers quickly gathered around him as he pointed toward the smoking craters. In the distance, they could see orange flames dancing between the trees and hear strange crackling sounds that did not sound like any fire they had ever heard before. The soldiers moved carefully through the dark forest, using their flashlights to navigate around fallen branches and smoking debris. The air smelled different too, like burning metal mixed with something sweet and unfamiliar. As they got closer to the first crash site, Tae-ho could see that whatever had hit the ground was definitely not from this world. The crater was about 10 meters wide and 3 meters deep. At the bottom lay a sleek silver pod that looked like it was made from some kind of advanced metal. The surface was smooth and reflective, but covered with strange symbols that glowed with a soft blue light. Steam was rising from the object, and small sparks of electricity danced across its surface. Private Lee Jinwoo was the first to spot movement inside the pod through what looked like a transparent window. He called out to his sergeant and pointed at the dark shape moving weakly inside the crashed vehicle. Tae-ho ordered 2 of his men to secure the area while he and Jinwoo carefully climbed down into the crater to get a better look. What they saw through the window made both soldiers stop and stare in complete shock. Inside the pod was a person, but clearly not human. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly in the darkness. Long silver hair covered part of her face, and her body was much taller and thinner than any human they had ever seen. She was wearing some kind of tight-fitting suit that looked like it was made from liquid metal. The being inside the pod was unconscious and appeared to be injured. Silver liquid that might have been blood was trickling from a cut on her forehead. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, as if she was having trouble getting enough air. The soldiers realized that whatever this creature was, she needed help immediately. Tae made a decision that would change everything. He ordered his men to carefully extract the alien from her damaged pod while he went to check the second crash site. The other crater was similar to the first, but the pod inside was more damaged and smoking heavily. Another alien was trapped inside, and this one appeared to be in even worse condition. The second alien looked almost identical to the first, except her hair was darker and her skin had a slightly different shade of blue. She was also unconscious, but seemed to be moving restlessly as if she was having bad dreams. Silver blood covered her arms and legs from various cuts and bruises caused by the violent crash. Both aliens were carefully lifted from their pods and carried to a secure bunker that the military used for storage during training exercises. Tae-ho knew that reporting this discovery immediately would mean that these beings would be taken away by government scientists, and he might never see them again. Something about their peaceful faces and obvious vulnerability made him want to protect them. The bunker was dry and warm with basic medical supplies and communication equipment. Tae-ho ordered his men to treat this as a classified operation and not to contact headquarters until he gave The Order, his soldiers, trusted him completely and agreed to keep the discovery secret for now. Hours passed as the soldiers took turns watching over the two unconscious aliens. They tried to clean their wounds with water and bandages, but the silver blood seemed to heal much faster than human blood. The alien's skin also felt different, warm, but with a strange tingling sensation that made the soldiers' hands feel energized after touching them. The first alien began to wake up just as the sun was rising outside the bunker. Her large violet eyes opened slowly and looked around the room with confusion and fear. When she saw Taiho sitting nearby, she tried to sit up quickly, but was too weak and fell back down onto the makeshift bed. Taiho held up his hands to show he meant no harm and spoke in a calm, gentle voice, even though he knew she probably could not understand Korean. The alien studied his face carefully and seemed to sense that he was trying to help her. She raised one weak hand and pointed to herself while making soft sounds that might have been her name. The sounds she made were musical and beautiful, like nothing any human language could produce. Taiho tried to copy the sounds, but his human vocal cords could not make the same tones. The alien seemed to understand his attempt and made what looked like a smile. Her expression was sad but grateful as she looked at the bandages on her arms. The second alien woke up much more violently than her companion. She sat up quickly and looked around the room with anger and suspicion. When she saw the human soldiers, she immediately tried to attack them, but was too weak to do much damage. Jinwoo stepped forward slowly with his hands raised and offered her a cup of water. Something about Jinwoo's calm manner and gentle approach seemed to calm the second alien down. She accepted the water and drank it carefully while keeping her eyes on all the soldiers in the room. Her expression was much more hostile than her companion, but she did not try to attack again. Both aliens had small devices attached to their belts that looked like advanced technology. The devices suddenly began glowing and making soft beeping sounds. After a few minutes, the aliens were able to speak in broken but understandable Korean. The translation devices were working to help them communicate with their human rescuers. The first alien introduced herself as Yuna and explained that the other was her sister Hana. They were from a planet called Kithara, which had been attacked and destroyed by a powerful enemy called the Vorthic Empire. They were among the last survivors of their entire species and had been traveling through space for many days, trying to find a safe place to land. Yuna explained that their escape pods had been damaged during their escape from the dying planet and they had crash-landed on Earth by accident. She was grateful to the humans for helping them, but worried that their presence might bring danger to this world. The Vorthic Empire was still hunting for survivors and might follow them to Earth. Hana was less trusting than her sister and wanted to know why the humans had not reported their arrival to their government. She was suspicious of their kindness and wondered if they planned to use the aliens for their own purposes. Taiho tried to explain that he just wanted to help them and make sure they were safe. As the day continued, the sisters slowly began to trust their human protectors. Yuna showed them that she had healing abilities and could help injured people by touching them with her hands. Hana demonstrated incredible strength by lifting heavy objects that normally required several men to move. The soldiers realized that these aliens were not just refugees but individuals with amazing abilities that could help humanity in ways they had never imagined, but they also understood that the sisters were in great danger and needed protection from forces that humans did not yet understand. Taya looked at Yuna and felt something he had never experienced before. Her alien beauty and gentle nature touched his heart in ways he could not explain. He promised her that he would do everything in his power to keep her and her sister safe, no matter what the cost might be. Crash landing had brought two worlds together in ways that no one could have predicted, and the future of both species now depended on the choices that would be made in the days to come.